Welcome back to Manifestly Good, where we explore what it truly means to live with purpose, integrity, and impact. Today I'm sitting down with Nick Mair, someone who knows firsthand the dangers of living in accordance with other people's expectations and the power of reclaiming your own path. Nick is the founder of Mental Health Pack. He's a career transitions coach and mental health first aid instructor. After years of chasing external validation, first as a pilot and then in the corporate world, Nick found himself stuck in what he describes as a self-made prison, suffering from anxiety and depression. But instead of staying stuck, Nick chose to break free, and he's now made it his mission to do the same for others. In this conversation, we dive into Nick's journey, from chasing a career to make his family proud, to the breaking point that changed everything. We discuss the lessons Nick's learned about masculinity, mental health, and why building a supportive community is essential for men today. His story is a powerful reminder that true strength is about honesty, self-awareness, and the courage to walk your own path. Let's dive in. Welcome to Manifestly Good, where we explore what it truly means to live as a good man in today's world. Today we have a guest whose journey has not only been one of resilience and transformation, but he's turned that into something to help and a mission to support others, which is fabulous. Nick, you're the founder of the Mental Health Pack. You're a career transition coach and a mental health first aider and an instructor. Through your work, you've helped men break free from outdated expectations. You've built real community and you've helped men take control of their mental health and well-being. So I'm so excited about today's discussion. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before we get into your story, how do you introduce yourself these days?
There's no real set piece there, I guess. For me, is introducing myself as a mental health advocate, certainly from lived experience, and a business owner that's working hard to try and build a business and grow one in this current market of higher costs and so forth. It's proving more difficult than expected, but I guess that's how I would introduce myself. Yeah, no longer male modelling. But no, it's a bit of fun.
There's more space for that yet, I bet.
Yeah, absolutely.
The aim of this podcast is to explore what it means to live as a good man and be a good man in today's world. Given the work that you do, supporting men with their mental health journey through career transitions and personal growth, how would you define a good man?
That's a very good question. I think for me, a good man is one that has a values-based life, lives with respect of self and others, and I think that's a key element there of respecting yourself, and living with integrity. I think having those things in alignment will produce a good man. I would certainly hope so.
The respect with you, tell me more what you mean by having respect for yourself.
Well, respect for self is, I think, has been a missing element in my own life for a very long time, and a lot of the self-talk comes around that self-criticism and not necessarily respecting yourself. You look at a lot of the podcasts and the books that are out there. I forget the lady's name, but I Am Enough is, she's an English lady. But anyway, there's a lot of material out there that is geared towards that. And I think that means that there's obviously a demand for that, if that makes sense. So I don't think there's a lot of self-respect out there, and I think that drives a lot of adverse behaviour and drives a lot of mental health issues as well.
Yeah, there is a big thirst for it at the moment. You see it in the in a lot of the material around people pleasing and addressing that sort of thing. The thing that's resonated with me is some of the material and self-development coaches asking people to put their own needs at least equal with everyone else's. Yeah,
and we don't. And I know I certainly don't. I had a ex-manager said, you're a people pleaser. And I thought, well, yeah, that's who I am, right? So there's a lot of other people out there that are people pleasers and alike. And I think
it's meant to be a good thing, isn't it? Making other people happy?
You'd think so, but usually it's putting yourself second in a lot of instances. Yeah, absolutely. And I heard a good analogy of if you paid a caddy to be with you on the golf course, and if they were constantly talking to you negatively, you wouldn't employ them for very long.
Yeah.
Yet we talk to ourselves just as bad.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to control for a lot of people, and certainly myself. The self-talk there is a very negative has a very negative bias, and if you can control that, then to me that's half the battle.
I think it is at least half the battle. Our early influences have such a lot to say about how we see ourselves, speaking of self-talk and those sorts of things, and the paths we pursue.
Yeah.
I know your story includes a lot of strong family influences and expectation and a deep connection to aviation. So I'd like to start there.
Yep.
Who are your male role models as you were growing up, and how did they shape?
Yeah, I think in that aviation context, my grandfather was in World War II, and he was in the Air Force and in Bomber Command, was a rear gunner, and that's the worst possible place to be when you're on a large bomber. And he got through that and was shot down over Germany and was in a POW camp, and he was barely 21 and actually turned 21 in the POW camp, probably in the cooler for being a rat bag. So I know where I get that from. And so he was a very big influence. He had a lot of undiagnosed PTSD and had a lot of mental health problems that was undiagnosed back then. It wasn't front of mind like it is now. And so he had that in addition to raising 3 kids. In that time of your life, it was a tough life for a lot of people, and built a house, lived in the garage for several years while they built their house, running a business as well. He was driving a cab. He owned a service station. And, his nerves were absolutely shot from his experience in the war, but it was never dealt with adequately. You can imagine jumping out of a burning aeroplane, banging your head. He nearly passed out, but he was somehow able to get out of the aircraft and survived. And he was a very big influence on my life. He died when I was about 16, and I don't think I recovered very well from that, and I didn't deal with it very well. But again, back in that time of, the early 90s, late 80s, that stuff, it never was dealt with by people. And even the mere mention of the phrase mental health was frowned upon and even swept under the carpet. So he was a very big influence. He was. There were so many good learnings that he told me that I've only realised.
Yeah, so he was in your
later.
Life. You were
yeah. Most definitely, he absolutely, and he took me driving. I was learning to drive, and
your granddad.
Yeah, and that was. I still remember it in the little Nissan Pulsar Cube, and it was a manual, and we were driving around. I was living on the mid-north coast of New South Wales at the time, and he said, "You've got to stop looking for people to see you driving," and that never really made much sense. But now when I reflect on that being what we were talking about before with the Myers-Briggs, the ENFP is that external parties that I'm looking for that external validation. So that was something that was told.
He noticed that in you.
To a 16-year-old at the time, you dismiss that and go, oh no, I'm having fun and learning to drive, and I've got some independence to some extent, even though I was still on my L's, and that never really made sense until I was a lot older. So he was certainly a very big influence, as was his son, my uncle, who I think he had a lot of, I'd say mental health issue, but a lot of battles there. But he started a very successful business, raised 2 amazing kids, went through a divorce, and recently passed away from brain cancer. But he was just such a hero of mine. He played baseball for Australia, and he was just my hero. And given that all those issues that my grandfather had would have filtered down to him. And he was the youngest as well, so we had that bond of being the youngest, and his whole attitude to business and life was something that really resonated with me, and he's someone that I looked up to, particularly now that I'm running my own business. What he did was just remarkable and worked so hard. And so they were 2 very big influences on the value of working hard and using humour to get through things, and what they did to be able to raise a family.
Your grandfather was a funny guy?
Sparingly, he was. He was so wrapped up in that that PTSD and the anxiety that he had to deal with, and he died early at 68. So that was a real ripple effect through the family, and I think those learnings from those two incredible guys was very big influence, as well as my father and brother, two very strong influences on my life as well. So I've been very lucky that I've had good men around me to make me the amazing person I am today.
Well, that's true. Also, so thank you. I'm going to ask you specifically what some of the values you think sort of were set by those men. Like what I'm hearing from your grandfather, what an amazing man, and typical of that wonderful generation. He was a World War II hero, and came, and sounds to me from the stories you're telling, emblematic of a stoic generation that experienced
absolutely.
a lot of trauma and came back and but set the standard for what it meant to be a provider, to be a man, to struggle through really challenging circumstances, and
absolutely.
be resilient and push on. So I think a little what I'm hearing from your story about him is it's about, to be a man is to be resilient and put up with a lot of
me man,
challenging
me
things.
strong, and things like that. That at that time it certainly didn't have the attention or the airplay that it has, in these modern times. So there was some big learnings from him, and you didn't understand it as a kid. Your brain's not fully developed till you're 25, so you don't. It didn't hit the mark like it would now when I reflect on some of those things. Everything's spinning around your mind, and then the hormones start kicking in, and you don't take it all. And that's why we get frustrated with teenagers. They think, well, I was like that too. So it's
nice to remind it of what we were like then.
Back in my day, but we were just as much clowns as they are today. So they've just got more technology to play with.
And if we flip to your uncle, what I think I'm hearing there is a man was an inspiration to you. He set a high standard in lots of different ways, both from a sporting perspective and professionally. And when I read your body language, when you tell those stories, that I can see that stood out as a guy who's...
Yeah, definitely. And I miss him terribly, but, he was very fit and healthy. He was a very strong, he was played pitcher, and had an amazing batting record, and he was just I was just in awe of him. But his work ethic was incredibly high, and would be driving a truck just to make ends meet, to provide for his training to be in the Australian team, and then building a business from next to nothing. And he was a rep on the road. Like he just had a remarkable career, and I always had a bit of a thing for marketing, and he was very, very clever in that space as well. So it worked out pretty well. But he was just a hero-like figure in my life that I aspired to be like. And just I wish I could throw the ball like him. But he was very fast and powerful frame of a guy.
It doesn't surprise me at all that having men like that in your life when you were young has left a deep impression. And
definitely.
Would you say that as a result, those two men are responsible for a large part of what you define as being a man and masculine, and sort of the expectations around that?
Definitely. But the thing with all those significant men as I was growing up was there was no real awareness or acceptance of the mental health issues. And I think a lot of people would recognise that, whether it's their parents or their uncles or other siblings or whatever it might be, that there was no awareness or acceptance of it.
Oh, look, we're struggling to crack the wall on that now, aren't we? And and we'll get to your work in that regard.
Absolutely. And obviously, in that all day, every day. But
wind us back a generation. And completely different.
It is totally different. And as we'll get, I'm sure we'll get onto the ADHD side of things, but told at the age of 32 that I was ADHD, and the anger that was there for not realising it, but no one else picking it up. And when you grow up in the 80s, it wasn't a thing. You were just a bit of a clown in class, and I was very lucky that I was able to get through school quite easily without doing much work. I couldn't focus on the work, but I was very lucky I could get through it with a reasonable degree of natural intelligence, but the application was not there. But that was a hard lesson for me to learn because it helped me realise that, well, I wasn't aware of it back then. So it was, it's probably a bit off topic, but yeah, I guess my grandfather and my uncle were not really acutely aware of it, and there was a lot of stoicism attached to that to say, well, I've got to be strong and provide for the family at their own detriment, and that's why they both died relatively young, I think, because of the battles that they had. And
yeah, it's pretty easy to understand, isn't it? I mean, if you wind back another generation, think about the model your grandfather would have had for for male role models and things, and the even more challenging times, the Great Depression, and that his childhood would have been
absolutely. And on the other side of the family, my dad's father was a shunter in the railways, in New South Wales Railways, which was just manoeuvring trains around. He never missed a day of work. And he used to ride to work every day through rain, hail or shine, but never took a day off sick, because that was what they did back then. These days, you're feeling a bit blue and you'll have a day off, and you've got that sick leave available to you to take off. But Jack would never do that. So that was Dad's influence at his early age as well, and that sort of carried on to us. Is that you just get in, pull your socks up, as a lot of young kids would have been told, is just pull your socks up and get into it.
Understanding some of the men in your younger years probably helps us take us neatly where I want to go next. When did you first start thinking of being a pilot? Where did that begin?
Oh, that was a couple of things. My mum used to pick me up from school and take me to the back of the, what was it called? The Castle Hill Motor Inn or something like that. And behind that was a helicopter business called Heliflight. And we used to sit there in the car after school and just watch the helicopters come and go. And obviously hearing the stories of my grandfather in the Air Force just fascinated me, and flight in general just fascinated me. And it was something that I thought, I've just got to be a pilot, because, the pilots are the heroes of the world. That's what I've got to do. But it turned out that the flying, particularly with ADHD, probably wasn't a good idea. And there was a lot of other different factors there. But that's when it all started, was listening to grandfather's stories. And not that he talked about it that much. It was very difficult for him to talk about. But that notoriety, or not notoriety, but that being in the military and going to war and all the madness and all that sort of stuff was pretty impressive as a young kid. Going, wow, he had bullets firing at him. And so that was probably the catalyst. And I was out mowing the lawns for him one day, and the lawnmower stopped, and he came out, had a look to see what was going on, and there I was with the mower off looking at a plane flying over. And it was just a little Cessna or something, but I was just glued to this thing flying over, and he said, that boy is born to fly. So that really stuck in my head. So I thought, well, I've got to be a pilot. And then the ego attached to that, thinking, I'm going to look great in those epaulets and walking around the airport. And, that's what attracted me to that, was that very ego-based want to be a pilot, when in reality, I learned to fly. I thought I had pretty good hand-eye coordination. And then at uni, at Newcastle Uni, one of my lecturers, when I was studying aviation, said it would be a waste to the world if you were a pilot. And that sort of washed over me, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And working for Qantas and being an ops for them and dealing with all the pilots, I thought, I don't think I fit that scene. And it helped me realise that I was probably doing it for the wrong reasons, even though I love aeroplanes and I'm fascinated, av geek or an aerosexual, but I love anything to do with aviation. But doing it for a pilot, I don't think that would be a healthy thing for me.
You've shared with me previously that you had a moment, like you were flying during your flying training. So, and this is, I know where this leads, is like what I'm hearing is a really strong aspirational story around what you'd pictured the life of a pilot to be in society and and what it looks like. But then the actual business of flying Can you tell me more about that experience?
Yeah, there was a couple of different experiences. So the first one was in the initial phases of training where we do stall training, where you drop the throttle and bring the aircraft to virtually a standstill, and then nose goes down and you stall the aircraft. We were doing that exercise and we went into what they call a secondary stall. So it stalled and then it stalled again. One of the wings stalled again. I don't know whether I'd moved the controllers.
I love this, Nick.
Be my wingman. Anyway, and it flipped the aircraft over and scared the living poop out of me, and it just rattled my confidence. And I thought, this is not the way I want to die. And not that it was a bit dramatic, but it just shook my confidence, and I found it very, very difficult to get back in the air after that. Whether it's just low resilience, but when you look at the mental health issues that I was experiencing, it makes sense that the high anxiety, which obviously led to the depression, the lack of resilience, the lack of motivation that ensued from that, it all made sense as to why I probably didn't proceed with that. I've got all the respect in the world for pilots. What they do is an incredible job, and some of them you just think, what's the difference between God and a pilot? God doesn't think he's a pilot. Those sort of jokes, but they're the guys that you want to step up when it hits the fan at 30,000 feet or whatever happens. They're the guys that will take control of that, and I was able to do that. We had an incident where a cloud bank came in seemingly out of nowhere, but I landed the aircraft when the instructor, an older instructor, got really nervous, thought, I don't think we're going to make it. And I said, no, we're fine. And bang, greased the landing, and I thought, fine.
Yeah,
but doing that with 300 passengers behind you is a little bit different. And then, the second part of that story is I remember I just done my first solo navigation exercise. So I was flying back in from Scone into Maitland, coming through 3,000 feet, and saw the airfield ahead, and I just had that epiphany moment where I thought, is this it? Like I was in...
Because a significant solo nav's like one of those first big freedom moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You're out by yourself.
Yep, you're out of the training area.
The
you're in the middle of nowhere, and at University of Newcastle, that's we're flying out of Maitland out to Scone, where all the beautiful horses are, and there's an aircraft museum out. Oh, not museum, but Colpay's Spitfires out there. So I went and had a look at that when I landed, and it was a beautiful aero moment, but I can still frame it in my head, seeing Maitland Aerodrome in front of me and just thinking, is this it? It's like all the checks are done. And I was really, I wouldn't say I was bored, but I was restless. And my thought was to be back on the ground in the Aero Club, because it was the Royal Newcastle Aero Club. I wanted to be back in the clubhouse with everybody, not necessarily sitting in the plane by myself. I thought if there was a way for me to get to the airlines without having to do all these solo hours, it may have been a little bit different, but I still would have got a little bit bored, because flying aeroplane, it's all about staying within the box, staying within the envelope, and ensuring that all the checks are done. With my ADHD mind, that's not a healthy thing, because the mind's constantly looking, and when things are going well, and my brain just doesn't get the dopamine hit from that as such, and that would cause me to be distracted, and that's a dangerous thing. So I just thought it was pretty obvious that I wasn't meant to be a pilot, and that was a huge ego hit, and it took me a long time to resolve that in my mind, because of I felt like a real failure. I felt I'm not who people think I'm going to be, because I thought people saw me as a pilot, when in fact it's just silly, but at the time that's what I thought was important, that people would see me as a pilot. And it was a very expensive exercise, and I had a Qantas pilot say to me, why didn't you continue with your flying training? And my throwaway line was, it's too expensive. And he called BS on me, that he said, no, mate, if you really wanted it, you would have found a way to do that. And at the time I was a little bit annoyed with him for saying that, because he was right at the top of the game, senior captain and everything. And on reflection of that, I thought, he was bang on. He read me like a book, and I've since gone flying with him. It's been fantastic. He's just a wonderful guy, and even made a model aeroplane for him of a Spitfire. So there was no malice from me there at all, but it really hit home that it helped me discover why I was doing that, based on the expectations of what I thought my role models in my life or friends and family thought, oh, you're meant to be a pilot, but that wasn't the reality. Because I was basing my self-worth on what I thought people thought of me. And
thank you.
That's so wrong. And so here I am, today doing something that I think really aligns with everything that I love and aspire to do. But there's not one aeroplane in sight as such.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's taken me a long time to get to 50 and think, oh, wow, it's been a long slog to get here. And it's I don't know, I probably lost my train of thought there.
So there's lots of things I love
distracted.
about this, and this is why we're having this discussion. So your story is an important one, and it's not an uncommon one. So what I'm hearing is that a childhood full of really strong role models and a natural inclination to love the aviation industry, inspired by helicopters in the back of the car park at Castle Hill and things like that. But you'd built a picture in your mind about what being a pilot looked like.
Yep.
And when you discovered that it actually wasn't what made your heart sing and what you were made for, it was really important what you said. I felt silly. It was a hit to my ego and things like this. This is a common feeling,
Yeah, I can imagine it is. And and there was no pressure at all from my parents. And I'm so grateful for this. We mentioned earlier about just wanting kids to be happy. My parents were very much like that. They said, whatever you do, if you want to be a garbologist, then we'll support you in that.
Yeah, so this was your journey, not theirs.
It was my journey, but I thought that, they'd help me with some of my flying training, help me with some of the accommodation going through uni, getting my degree, that I owed that to them. And I stayed in the aviation game, even though I loved being around aeroplanes and so forth. It's a tough industry to be in when you're very people focused, I guess, to some extent, and you're a little bit creative because, and I'm making a very wide general judgment here, but a lot of people in aviation are very good at staying in the box. All right, very, as we saw at Boeing, you got Boeing, aviation, defence, all these things that rely heavily on protocols and procedures. Yeah, absolutely. That's the opposite of what I do. I am very off the cuff. I decide what I'm going to be posting on, as part of my LinkedIn work. That morning I'll see something and go, oh, that's a great idea for a post, and I'll go out and do it. It's the total opposite of what being a pilot was, or working in aerospace or whatever it is. It was the total opposite. So I was, as cliche it is, potentially living a lie, thinking I'm doing something that I think other people expect me to do, which was totally inaccurate. And I'm very grateful that it took me a long time, but I got there eventually to work out that that's not right for me as such.
Look, why I love talking about this, Nick, is because you're not alone. There's a large number of men and women out there doing things that they, that are against the expectations. And it's the funny thing about expectations, they're kind of invisible, and we often don't question them, even when they're our own. Yeah. And in hearing you talk about getting to those points, you've gone, hang on, what I thought was right for me actually wasn't.
Yeah, it's, from my perspective, the expectations of what I thought were on me, when in reality, mum and dad just wanted me to be happy and doing something that I love doing. And they thought, oh, you love flying? Great, we'll support you with that. But I could have turned around the next day, they want to be a truck driver, and they would be going, okay, let's sign you up for a learner's course in driving a big truck, B-double or whatever. Yeah. So their expectation was purely based on love and happiness, whereas mine was thinking, oh, I don't want to let my parents down. I don't want to let my grandfather down. He's looking down on me going, oh, dude, you've got to be in the Air Force. There was none of that there that I thought was. So I would imagine there might be direct expectations on some people, and others it could be implied or inferred, or made up in their head. Mine was the latter. Mine was made up in the head. People didn't care that I was in aviation or not. They just like Happy Nick.
Yeah, but it's not the way you felt when you were trying to drive yourself along.
No, and so that external mindset that I had, or the locus of control, whatever they call it, the ENFP of the Myers-Briggs, my external validation was tied up in what I thought were the expectations. And it's only now that you get a little bit older that you realise, I've just got to do what makes me happy. And I think I'm doing that now.
Huge realisation. I know we've talked about you having a similar moment when you went to work for Boeing. Yeah. Realising that fit. Can you tell me more about that as well?
Yeah, well, that was more around having an email address after my name of at Boeing.com, and just thought, made it. Dad can be at the bowling club with his mate saying, my son works for Boeing. That's what I thought. It's not what in reality happened. Well, he probably did. I don't know. But I was doing that purely from an ego perspective of saying to people, I work at Boeing. And that's similar to wanting to be a pilot, is being able to say to my old school friends, I'm working for Boeing now. In fact, I ran into a school friend in the middle of Brisbane once, and I had my business card on there, and I couldn't wait to give him a business card to say, I've made it on Boeing, even though I was miserable in the job. Great team around me. I met some beautiful people at Boeing, and still stay in touch with them. In fact, one's a really close mate of mine. But it was purely the ego that was driving my life to stay at Boeing in, a very mundane, boring job, because I had Boeing.com after my name. And that was a really tough thing to realise when I eventually left. It was just, I was starting to spiral down into a really nasty place that I didn't want to go to. Yeah. I had a doctor say, right, take 2 weeks off mental health leave or whatever you want to call it, and walking afternoon and morning every day with your sunglasses off so the light hits you. I don't know the technical term. And that certainly helped. But then I went back there and was still in the same cycle of
not addressing the real reason why you're in that place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I went to a mining company after that, following my boss from Boeing. I didn't have any great pride in the product there. It was a coal mining company, and I thought, coal, I don't know if I can really get behind this, but I stayed there because I was in a comfortable job that I could do standing, sleeping, and I thought that's what I needed to do to fit in the world, if that makes sense. So that was a very big feature, and luckily I got made redundant, and a good friend of mine from Boeing said, no one ever goes backwards from redundancy. This is a really good opportunity for you. And had another couple of recruitment jobs, and finally got to where I am today. But and the career coaching as well, which I love doing also, is helping people get their brand right to go to market and so forth. But that's based on a lot of my own first-hand experience.
Yeah. So another example of going somewhere where you thought you'd succeed, but you had expectations built around like what that would look like and how impressive it would be.
Absolutely.
Yep. You mentioned ego a couple of times, and that means a lot of different things to different people. What does that mean to you when you use that?
It's how people perceive me, and being seen to be in aviation or whatever it was, based on my childhood love of aeroplanes. Yeah, huge sense of identity there, and went to an aviation maintenance business. And walking around with the shirt on, I was just king of the world, thinking, look at me, and ran into an old uni friend. She goes, oh, look at you, you've made it, you're in your aviation. And, whilst I was in quite a senior role there, I was still starting to go on that cycle of feeling good, getting the excitement of starting a new role, and then the anxiety and the depression would just take hold, and the ADHD, particularly in the sort of environment that you're in. I couldn't stay between the lines. I think that's probably the best metaphor for it. I could not stay between the lines, and that was something that I kept pushing through, again, based on those stoic values that my grandfather had. You just got to keep going. Yeah. And it just got to the point that it was just too hard to carry that burden of what I perceived as the expectations of me, which was a false thing. Yeah,
I know you described the corporate life you were living as a self-made prison.
Yeah.
And hearing you talk about it now is how incredibly challenging that was. And that was being counterweighted by the values that you grew up with, which is about, you stick stuff through.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're hinting at a breaking point.
So I was doing some contracting work, and then I'd planned to. Well, I was enrolled in the mental health first aid instructor's course at the beginning of, I think it was 23, and then a recruiter approached me about
just stepping back a tiny bit. What was the trigger for enrolling in that course?
Oh, it's just I just felt the right thing for me to do, to think this is something I really want to do. I've always wanted to facilitate and teach as such. I think that was my inner calling. And so that's something that I always wanted to do. And I had a real solid lived experience with mental health, and I thought I really want to be able to help people.
So the
with this.
combination of the two felt like a really good fit.
Absolutely. A ex-Boeing friend who was a mental health first aider had helped me tremendously in some dark times. So that sort of played on my mind as, well, that's what I want to do, and
So let me pull a thread for a moment. What I hear from the pilot and the Boeing and the stuff like that, you were like, in your words, I think, is like my chest, I could feel my chest come out, whether it was epaulettes or uniform or business card or email address. It was like an external validation.
Yes.
And I think what I'm hearing is like, what I've heard so far is a couple of really internally validating things, your recognition of what you're great at. Facilitation and help, and making a difference to other people's lives through that way, and a very personal mission around mental health. And you saw did you feel any of this is a role that has prestige associated with it?
No, like there's absolutely none of that at all. For me, it's the prestige in it is the fact that I'm a real LinkedIn tart and on LinkedIn all day, every day.
Later, though, like
it did come later. Yeah, it did. And so I guess the prestige was wanting to live authentically and wanting to live closer to my values of, it's cliche as it sounds, helping people. But my whole drive was I didn't want people to feel that they were alone or that they didn't have an outlet to be able to talk. And to me, talking is the best antidote to mental illness, a common mental illness, be it depression or anxiety disorders. So that was the driver there. But then this recruiter came in and said, we've got this great opportunity at Volvo. It was a leadership role. Are you interested? And I said, yeah, great. And so the fact that someone tapped me on the shoulder got me super excited, and the ego went into overdrive, secured the role, but then I and missed the course, the mental health first aid course. So I gave that up to pursue because I thought, great, ego, expectation, great, let's do it. And, 5 months later, I was in contact with Lifeline, ready to end my life, because I'd gone from just that constant merry-go-round of get the excitement of the job and then realise, I'm doing the same shit over and over again. This is just not going to be good for me. And then just constantly, falling off that ledge. And, I got to the point that I thought, I can't do this. I can't live anymore. I can't do this anymore. And that was all going in my head. And I didn't talk about it openly. I didn't let people in to say, you know what? I don't want to live anymore. And I got to that state. There was a real, and I still remember it, one night just laying there in bed, going around and around and thinking, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. This is how I'm going to do it. Yep, I'm at peace with that. And this sense of calm that came over me was akin to, meditating or that relaxation training that some people do. My whole body was
Nick,
numb.
You were talking about taking your own life.
Yeah. And that acceptance of that was, that's it. And I felt like I was floating. My whole body was just numb, and it was a blissful numbness. And, my wife was right next to me, and I just thought, whoa, something, I don't know what it was. It was.
You're describing it as a really peaceful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing that sort of snapped me around, go, whoa, I don't know what it was, whether it was divine intervention or something just said, stop. And that's where I got in touch with Lifeline, picked up the red phone to Lifeline, and was chatting with a guy by the name of Michael, and he's my new guardian angel, and he was just exceptional at getting me talking. He only said 3 words to me of tell me more. That's all he said. I knew what this guy was doing. I thought, I know what you're doing, you bastard. I know that you're just getting me to talk. But the more I talked, the better I started to feel that actually it's not as bad as what I thought, and I can make changes. And there were so many good learnings out of that. And he just said it over and over. Tell me more. Yep. Okay, great. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. By the end of it, I was absolutely emotionally exhausted, but I felt safe again, which was the beautiful thing. And Lifeline are just the most amazing organisation. And so I guess the learnings out of that was to put my hand up, to be a little bit more open with my wife in particular to say, hey, I'm not doing good. I need some help. And so I've got that help. And yeah, it was just a remarkable experience. And that lived experience is what makes my message so genuine and authentic, that I hope people can digest it and realise that they're not alone, that they've just got to talk to anyone, just talk it out. And it's like, I use the analogy of a balloon, that allow people to deflate that balloon of anxiety or depression or whatever it is. The more we talk, the bigger that balloon will inflate. So if you just let them get it out, it's deflating that pain that they're in or whatever it is. That's the only real thing that I can visualise to help people provide that level of help for someone else. And it was a very big pivotal time in my life. And then, ADHD, on a whim, quitting my job at Volvo, which was not planned. And that was a really hard thing, that I didn't make those, plans with, my main person in my life, my wife, to say, okay, I can't stay at Volvo. Let's put in places to plan of how to set up the bit. It was all incredibly quick, and just thought, nope, I've quit. I can't do it. And, served out my notice.
Like you were going on instinct, like you just
yeah, I was, but I made, okay, yeah, it was a very helpful thing for my mental health, but I needed to include others in my life to say, hey, this is, you know what I mean? I could have done it a lot differently. If I had my time over again, I would have done it a lot differently to reduce the pressure that, that I potentially placed on others. So, yeah, would have done it differently if I could have. But going back to that, that lifelong conversation was the thing that really helped tremendously. And that's why I harp on about it on my LinkedIn around talking. And every Thursday I've got the Talk It Out Thursday, where I walk across the Kangaroo Bridge in the city in Brisbane, back and forth, just once, just letting people know in their lunch hour, if they just want to have a chat with someone, come and talk to me. Yesterday I did it solo, and that was fine because I got a really beautiful phone call from a psychiatrist office to say, hey, we've accepted your referral. I thought, thank God. So that's taken me a long time to get in to see a psychiatrist for treatment with the ADHD. So, yeah, that worked out really well that I was able to do that on the bridge by myself. I regretted not having anyone with me, because no matter who it was, I would have hugged them to say, hey, I've done it. But the first thing I did was text my wife going, oh, my God, I'm in. So it was a good feeling. So hopefully, I'm hoping that it works. But, I'm very much bull out of the gate. But that's the ADHD. So I'm hoping I can get some help with that. But so that was the catalyst of starting the mental health pack and the realisation that, well, I'm not a pilot. I'm not in aviation. I'm just a man trying to help others, living with purpose, to make sure that no man or woman feels as alone or as dark as I did at that fateful night. And even though I wasn't physically alone, my mind had just shut off from everything. It was just a really remarkable experience that I'll never want again. So.
You've taken us neatly to the start of you initiating mental health pack, but I want to acknowledge you did a very sensitive and wonderful job of sharing that moment. I'm upset sitting here hearing that story, to think of the world without you, Nick. And I know the suicide stats in Australia are
they're terrible. Like, it was roughly 3,200 people a year in Australia take their life. Yeah. It's roughly 9 a day, and which 7 of those are men. Yeah. And the road toll was 1,194 in 23, I think it was. And so what do you hear more about? It's the road toll. It's not so much the suicide rate. And, there's some interesting stats around that. People without a degree, as an example, are 2.6 times more likely to die by suicide than someone with a degree. And I thought, how does that work? I've got a degree. Yeah, I could have been in those stats, but that was that's statistically based. Whether that's a socioeconomic or something like that may be driving those numbers, I think it's probably likely. But won't go into that, but that was a fascinating stat that I read. I thought, well, I had my degree, so it was.
Yeah, it's huge. And look, you, I don't know, it's the basis of starting Mental Health Pack. You sharing your story
Yep.
is a huge thing to allow other people to understand that this is not
that's the whole thing. And it's not a comfortable, well, it wasn't a comfortable conversation for me to have externally outside of my brain, but I realised that was something that had to happen to encourage particularly blokes to open up and think, well, geez, if Nick's standing in front of a room full of people telling this story, maybe I can, reach out and get some help. And that's the whole thing behind it, is paving the way for other men in particular to talk, or anyone to talk, and get it out of their system as to what might be driving their depression or their anxiety or whatever it might be. That's my whole purpose, is to get people talking. And I'm very upfront saying, I'm not a doctor, not a psychologist, but this is what's worked for me, is that talking it out. So, do the Talk It Out Thursday. I've got the Palmy Army, which I do second Wednesday of every month, just to get blokes together around a palmy, or a palmer, as they say in Melbourne.
That's right. Anyone watching this outside of Australia, palmy.
Yeah, Parmigiana, the chicken palmy, which is a pub favourite in Australia. So getting guys together, and I think I'm the only one that had, no, there was two of us the other night that had a palmy. But anyway, it's just the concept of getting guys together and talking in a very safe, non-judgmental environment. There's no titles. No one's director of this or dad or uncle. They're just a man. Yeah. And we just talk. We're going to go fishing up at Noosa. I want to do an arcade night where we just go to an arcade, and there's one in the valley that we'll probably go to.
As in old school computer
games. Yeah, all that sort of stuff to tap into our childhood, to say, hey, let's have some fun together and forget about being a dad or a business owner or whatever together. So that's a really powerful thing. But in COVID, I started the monthly Merry Meander. So we were walking up Mount Cootha the last Friday of every month, just to get people out walking and talking. And that's before my Lifeline episode. And I saw a real need there just to get some connection, and I think that's a very powerful thing. And so we've changed from Mount Cootha to around the city loop, because it's flatter and there's no hills there to walk up. But it's just, that's what I'm all about now. And it's, eating 2-minute noodles is fine, but I'm doing something really quite valuable, and I'm hoping that it grows, and I can provide more value to the community to let people know that talking is just the start of it, right? So, like I said, the awareness, the acceptance, and the action is very important to be able to get that help. So.
Yeah, so I have so many questions. I jumped a step. The mental health pack. So I know the pack.
Yep.
The concept of the pack is like a metaphor in some ways for you. Can you tell me where that came from?
We all talk about the black dog. So everyone focuses on, well, I thought everybody focuses on that black dog. No disrespect to the Black Dog Institute. They do incredible work. But metaphorically, I thought, well, what's the antidote to the black dog? And I thought, maybe it's a wolf, and maybe a wolf pack to tie into that sense of community for people. So I thought, well, I'll start the mental health pack mentality T-shirts, just to get people thinking that
it's great.
You're always safer in the pack, and that's a tribal value that we all have. You're accepted by your community, then you're relatively a lot more safer, that you can eat and live and got shelter.
Right? Community too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think community is something really important that I'm trying to build, but I can only do that by being that element of authentic, being my crazy self, and what's the word I'm looking for here? Destigmatizing mental health talk, right? Yeah. So by being vulnerable, sometimes too vulnerable on social media about my experiences and how important it is to talk, I'm hoping that that's opening the door for others to think, you know what, maybe I do need to go talk to somebody. And it's a very important thing for me. And I'm hoping that message gets out. I think I was saying to you the other day that if I was a pure psychologist and pure theoretically in that mental health space, I don't think the message would hit home as easily as someone with lived experience. Yeah. And
It's almost always true, isn't it?
yeah,
Whatever we're
I
teaching
think
or
so.
learning.
And I've always thought, I've got to be a psychologist. I've got to have my, master's in psychology, and that's some of that is a former role model talking to me in my head saying, "You got to have your degree, which I can understand some of
It
that.
fits with
but-
some of the stories we've
yeah,
shared
it
already
does.
too, right?
And as someone pointed out to me the other day, you don't necessarily need a degree. You can still learn that information and apply it to people without having that title of a psychologist or whatever it might be. But I'll always defer anything clinical to the experts. But from my perspective, based on my experience, walking and talking or looking in a campfire, like I design these men's retreats, wolfpack retreats, and it's all campfire therapy just to get guys looking in the fire. You're side by side. You're not standing opposite them. We're side by side looking at that campfire, and that's where the magic happens.
It's one of my favourite analogies that men aren't great sharing important emotional things face to face. They do it shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah,
Often
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
doing
And you think
something
about those good conversations we have. It's in the car, it's walking, sitting by the campfire or looking out at the ocean or whatever it might be. It's not necessarily directly in front. And that's something I encourage people to do in the courses that I do, is always just have a bit of an angle between you and the person opposite you to encourage that open conversation. Because if you square on, and a psychologist told me this, so I know it's, and there'll be scientists on there going, that's not. But having an angle there just diffuses it and allows that message to be received and opened up a little bit more. So that's why I'm always consciously trying to keep an angle between myself and others. And I learned that back in year 12 at school when we were doing
do you have a feeling of why for men that makes a difference?
Well, I don't. Well, you look at a boxing match and the two opponents line up perfectly square to each other, and that's a very confrontational thing. But if you've just got that angle there, I think it just takes the steam out of any potential confrontation, which men might be on guard. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but that's my theory on that. I know you just tilted your shoulders. So
I'm
very
learning,
good.
Nick. I'm open to.
But but you can
growth.
apply it to business, or you're having a rather tense union, negotiation with salary. Just tilt your shoulders, and it makes a very big difference to that. And like I said, that's something I learned a very long time ago, and some leadership training we did at school, because we're school captain. You got to go to leadership training. That was something that I picked up from that I remember from such a long time ago.
Yeah, all the body language stuff, right? Like
it's
stopping
huge.
yourself from being closed off and being
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably a tip. Always create that angle when you're having a meaningful conversation with somebody.
Yeah, look, I'm struck by, we started talking about your early role models and the difference in connection and vulnerability between your grandfather's generation, your uncles and your fathers, and what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that those men had, not those men specifically, but that generation had vulnerable conversations too. And it probably took the sorts of things you're talking about too, And we see it in movies too, when men have to share difficult information. They don't do it face to face. Let's go for a walk.
Yeah. Yep.
But you're finding, so what I'm hearing is community is a big difference.
Yep.
Are there other kind of things you think are making a big difference in terms of men being able to make that connection?
I think more men are being a lot more open, like I am, visibly open on social media, and there's other men's groups that have popped up, like the men's table, men's talk or something like that over in WA. I've gone blank, so apologies to those guys. I was in the Tough Guy book club, and I tried to start up my own book club, but no bastard read the book, so we thought, let's just make it the Palmy
Not the
Army.
only book club where that's the case.
That's
I
probably
think a lot of drinking clubs masquerading with the book.
Right. So I think that I just wanted to give some sense of purpose to the guys in my own network to say, well, we'll have a book, and got onto Jack Reacher books, and I thought, that'd be cool, but no one could be asked reading the book. So I thought, okay, maybe we'll just get rid of that and just focus on the process of having a meal and a beer together, not going stupid with the alcohol, but just having one beer and a palmy or steak or whatever. It opens up the doors for conversations. And the one we had this week, I was actually in two minds whether I'd cancel it or not. And then I realised that a good friend who's been travelling was going to be going there for the night. I thought, well, he might be there. He might be the only one there. So I'm really looking forward to catching up with him. And it turns out we had another 4 guys turn up. So it was a really good night. But I was at the time ready to cancel and thought, I can't do this anymore. No one wants to come along. But it worked out to be the best night ever. and the palmy was sensational. Thank you, Mr. Edwards Alehouse. But yeah, it was good, very good.
Have you had moments where you've known like these things have made a difference to the people?
I've had, yeah, definitely. I've had people reach out. I had a lady reach out once via text and said, "You've just saved my marriage. I thought my husband was being absent and dismissive, and it was my birthday and he forgot my birthday. Then I saw one of your posts and I asked him, was he okay? And he wasn't. Now he's getting the help. So I can't thank you enough." So it made a bit of a difference. And you don't see that when, I put a post out on LinkedIn, and it was one about Paul Green when he died by suicide a few years ago, a month short of his 50th. It really struck a chord with me, and this poster went absolutely viral. It had like 1.4 million impressions, 14,000 likes, or whatever you call it.
Amazing.
A lot of comments, and I didn't expect that. And I had a call at 12 o'clock one night from a guy in Northern Ireland that's daughter was experiencing some mental health issues. He wanted some advice, and I thought, I'm not a psychologist, but this is what's worked for me. And so that was a very powerful thing as well. And I got a message during the week that, look, you really made a difference with the Palmy Army. I'm really grateful that I was able to attend, and they can't attend it anymore because of other activities that are happening. So that was a really positive thing as well. And there's it taps into the ego a little bit to think, yeah, I've made a difference. But is that the ego or not? I'm not sure. But knowing that I've made a difference to encourage people to feel better and help them feel better is a very big thing for me. Whereas 10 years ago, it would have been I would have been looking at more data stuff for a recruitment activity to go, oh, yeah, I'm doing well. But now it's just making a difference in someone's life. And if I just save one life, then mission accomplished.
Yeah, I have no doubt you can feel that, Nick.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing that I'm involved in now. And like I said, it's 2-minute noodles, but it's growing and it's going to develop into other offerings and so forth. So it's pretty exciting times.
Knowing what I do about your energy, I'm confident it will too.
Geez, I hope so.
Like you've hinted at it with some people reaching out, but for someone who's perhaps listening to this podcast and can relate to that feeling, whether it was that awful night for you laying in bed or just, if they feel like they're totally out of alignment with where they should be, what would you suggest is the first steps?
Look, there's a number of different steps, and back to what I might have mentioned before, the magical 3 A's of awareness, acceptance and action. So having the awareness is a very important step to go, this is a problem. And then the acceptance of that, thinking, yeah, I've got a problem. And that's probably part of the Alcoholics Anonymous AA thing of, accepting you've got a problem is the first step. And then leading into that action of getting help. Now, that could be sending a text to your mate, being open and honest, saying, hey, I'm not doing well, I need to talk. I try and assign 5 people to 5 fingers so that I can look at my hand knowing that, I've got safety as well. There's a Beyond Now app, which...
So tell me that bit again, like...
5 friends, 5 fingers. Yeah, so assigning a friend to each finger or the group to say when I am feeling low, I'll see my finger and go, I've got to give Matt or Cam or Eric or Jamie a call and say, hey, I need some help.
What strikes me, because I think that is really important, Nick, is when I keep thinking about your early role models and male expectations and things, and I think about that stoic generation, and it's usually about solidarity, right? About I've got this stuff under control. Yeah, I can do this. I don't have to rely on other people.
Absolutely. And I think with some men, it's I don't want to be a burden. I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell my mate I'm not doing well. I don't want to bother them. Yeah. And that was, one of the thought processes I went through is I've got some incredible mates that I'm just so proud to be their mate, but I didn't want to annoy them or interrupt them with, their family responsibilities or whatever. And I found it very difficult to reach out to them and interrupt their life.
And that's a really, really natural feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's not really specific to men. It's everybody. They just don't want to interrupt other people's lives with something.
I reckon the thing that flips that is that if you imagine it the other way around, if it was my friend who needed that from
absolutely. And that gets people's paradigm of thinking, I probably would do that. And that's some of the posts that I do is people would rather hear your problems than your eulogy. So
Yeah.
reach out. And that's the hardest part is reaching out for
Yeah, so
for
I
some help.
interrupted your 5 friends model.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
like.
That's the Beyond Now app, which was developed by, funnily enough, Beyond Blue and Lifeline, and that's a remarkable app that allows people to upload photos in there to remind them of the good things going on in their life, the people in their life that they can reach out to. Gives you the access to the ability to put in their phone numbers, so you can upload your contacts in there, so you can have 5, 10 contacts there that you know that when you're in that dark space, you can reach out to those people, and it gives you tips as to what are the signs that I might be slipping, what are the things I need to do, or the places to avoid in the house, as an example, to keep me safe, things like that, or activities that I can do to offset my feeling. Like for me, it's mowing the lawns. It gets me out doing something, and you can look back on the lawn and think, yeah, I did that. That was an achievement, right? It's something very simple but so effective. So that's really a powerful
I
thing.
like mowing the lawn too. I did it as a kid, and it's just
It brings back some great memories.
When I think about that, then I probably think of that was, the start of responsibility and feeling good about stuff, and feeling like an adult when I did stuff like that, as well as, and the smell of cut grass always makes me feel good as well.
Yeah, it's a very positive, and smell is a very powerful medium to generate some really strong good feelings. Like you smother a roast pork with garlic or something and put that in the oven, and after a few minutes you think, oh, it's a really comforting smell. So, or baking cookies or something when you're trying to sell your house. But there's some really good techniques there. So that app is really good. And the thing I like about, there's a number of different things like Lifeline, Beyond Blue, Black Dog Institute, Movember, Men's Line. They all offer online chat functions as well. So guys that may not want to phone someone can pick up their smartphone and dial in the chat line address, and it's as though they're sending a text to somebody to talk it out. So I think that's a very powerful medium as well, which I've used several times, and it's been bang on every time, just to take the steam out of that feeling.
Yeah, it reminds me of your balloon analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you that opportunity to do it. And even some AI, like even ChatGPT, has the capability that you type some things in and it will give you some really good little advice to triage that feeling of despair or helplessness or hopelessness or whatever it might be. There's some really good tools out there for us to be able to use to get the conversation going. So that's probably what I would recommend to people is, if you don't feel comfortable with your friends, then you've got the online versions with Beyond Blue, Lifeline as a starter. And like I said, even AI these days is very capable of providing some initial advice. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some technical, clinical people going, you shouldn't be. But I've used it and it's really given me some information that will help me process it and realise that, okay, yeah, I'm probably talking this up in my head. It's not as bad as what I think it is, or whatever it is. And that's the age we live in now. There's going to be AI that will be able to support us through that. It's not as good as being face to face with somebody and so forth. But yeah, there's some good tools.
If that's
out
the
there.
difference between someone sitting alone and suffering and that connection,
Bang on, absolutely. But again, I don't want to endorse that if it's not clinically accepted, but it's worked for me, right? So I'm delivering the message based on my experience with it, and I've, with the chronic depression, there's a list, but I'm actively getting help. I'm accepted the fact that, I do need that help, and I might need it for the rest of my life, but I'll be safe.
Your willingness to share is a huge thing, as you know. Hearing those stories makes such a big difference, Nick. So the journey we've gone with you, I think, has been fabulous. Talking about where some of your role models, set the standard for masculinity, and how that led you perhaps to some of your own expectations around what a happy and successful life looked like, finding your own alignments, your own mental health challenges, and you connecting that with the things that really make you sing, and initiating the mental health pack and the work that you do now, Nick, I reckon is fabulous, and puts you in, I think, and I'm going to ask you some questions around what masculinity looks like today, because I think you're in a fabulous position to have some really strong views on that. What do you think's missing from the mainstream conversation around masculinity today, though. There's a lot out there around toxic masculinity and some of the negative stuff.
Yeah, I think we've just got to get back to basics, and there's a lot of conversation, a lot of airplay going on around that. I haven't seen it, but that TV show called Adolescence, where there's obviously a lack of role models or a lack of discussion around some important things around masculinity as to what it means, and it potentially is in a state of flux at the moment. So I don't think there's any set formula just yet. Like, everyone's got a different perspective on it, and mine will be different to people that might be listening. They may have a different perspective to me. So
I am interested in yours.
Yeah, look, to me, I think that's a tough one. Back to what I think is important around respect and integrity. I think if you get those two things right, then that's got you halfway there, I think.
It sounds good to me. What do you mean by, well, let's pull them apart. What do you mean by respect?
So internal and external respect. So respecting others, respecting their opinions, respecting their needs and wants and so forth. So I just think that's those old school values of respect, integrity, good manners. I'm sounding like a boomer, sorry. I think that, they're the two key elements for me, and that's
I hope
the right.
There's always a place for good manners, Nick.
Yeah, exactly right. But I think respect and integrity are two very important things, and if you've got them, then that puts you in a really good position to be a good man, if that's where you're sort of heading with that question. I think it makes perfect sense.
Integrity again in a moment. But
but if you can't respect yourself, then I think that's a really good starting point, is learning to respect and appreciate yourself. And I wouldn't say honour yourself, but it's look after yourself and be kind to yourself.
I think that's certainly a theme that's come through in our discussion today, the importance of that. You ignore your own needs and who you are at your peril to an extent.
Yep.
Your body will rebel eventually.
Yep.
And having the awareness, it's kind of like your 3 A's, that awareness and action around that seems to fit there too. So respect sounds like a really good one.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what you mean by integrity.
Doing the right thing when no one's looking. Essentially, it's living aligned to your values. Yeah, look, everyone has a different version of their own integrity, but for me, it's just doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's respecting women and respecting kids. It goes back into the respect thing, but it's just doing the right thing by people. Yeah, that to me is integrity, doing what you say you're going to do, but doing the right thing. Sorry, that was a really jumbled response, but that's my little view of it.
It didn't sound too jumbled to me. It does, to me, it boils down to that too, isn't it? It's doing what you say, living in accordance with the things you say are important, and particularly when no one's watching. And
absolutely.
And with yourself, like that theme of we've been discussing around knowing yourself and things like that.
Yep.
Being truly honest with yourself.
Yep.
That's come out in some of your stories, being able to recognise that there's a misalignment between what you think you want and what you're really good for and what you're made for, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having integrity is making tough decisions, isn't it? And that's what you've had to do a number of times.
Yep.
What advice would you give to men who feel pressure to meet outdated expectations? You've talked about it being kind of a changing landscape, which I agree.
Yeah.
And we're in a bit of a transition point. And, what advice would you give to men?
Always come back to your core values, and feeding back into what we just spoke about with that element of respect and integrity. But those core values, if they're in place, then it's coming back to them and ensuring that you're doing the right thing by other people. And that's fraught with danger, that topic. And there's a lot of things that get said on social media, and someone only has to say the wrong comment on a post and then it just all blows out. And whether it's International Men's Day or International Women's Day, and it just blows things out of the water. So we have to tread carefully with that so that someone may not get offended by it. But to me, I just think it comes back to living true to your values and living with integrity.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting, isn't it? Like I think your field of play is one of outdated expectations. Men's mental health, and like we think about the story about your grandfather and his challenges, and men of that generation. It's not the values then were around stoicism and not sharing, and we're now shifting to a place.
I
where
think it's shifting quite rapidly, and it's good. The tide is well and truly turning for the right reasons, and I'm excited to see what happens in the future.
How can men better show up for each other as fathers, husbands, leaders?
Showing up for other men, I think that's a very good question. I think for me as a man, it's coming back to doing what you say you were going to do with a friend, but checking in as well. And I think we lose touch with that. And that's why I created the Palmy Army thing, was just to get us checking in with each other consistently, because life gets in the way with the kids, the jobs, the marriage, or whatever it is. And we lose touch with our kin, our mates. And I think if we can do that, then that will hopefully lighten the load on guys. I think that's very important.
Yeah, checking in's a really important one.
We just don't do it, and that's part of the Movember model. They call it ALEC, of ask, listen, encourage, and check in. So the check in side of things is not something that we do.
Yeah.
Well, we generally will check in when we need something. We're not checking in, say, mate, I just want to reach out, see how you're doing, or whatever it is. And that's why I've tried to do the Palmy Army, the monthly meander, to have a line in the sand that people know that there's something coming up, to be able to do that. And sometimes the early start scares people off with the meander, but that's fine. We just need to check in more.
Yeah, I feel being able to read, like doing that regularly through the avenues that you've got, gives you a read on people. So I know the usual answer to how you going is, I'm going good.
Good. Thanks, you. How are you really going? Just adding that word "really" in there, and that's the thing with "Are you okay?" Day as an example is, are you really okay? Adding that word in there just changes the whole flavour of that statement or that question, and hopefully it encourages people to open up a little bit better, because when you do ask it again, that's when people go, oh yeah, how am I really doing? It has a very big impact on the individual.
I've really enjoyed talking about your journey. When I think about what we've covered, I think about the evolution of your values. Manifestly Good is about exploring the values and it's clear that you've always been turning up as a good man in this world, Nick. But it's about the expectations and where you got those from, and it's been really interesting to hear the evolution of those from when you were young, like young men do. We're picking those up from the important parts of our lives culturally, the men in our lives, and things like that. And what I heard was that you had aspirations career-wise for some things that to you stood out as being a contributor, someone people respected, roles that meant you were, something important in this world, and you did something exciting that inspired you from when you were a really young age. And it took some really confronting experiences for you to actually question where, that value system and were you really setting the right expectations for yourself? And through some really, really difficult stuff, you've landed at a place where you're much more in touch with who you are, what your strengths are, and how you turn up for other people. And I see a man who does live with respect and integrity, but you've married those really nicely with what your strengths are, that you love connecting with people and helping them grow and learn, and your facilitation in a lot of different ways really helps you do that. And the message you're sharing through the mental health pack is an extension of that as well. I think it's an awesome message for everyone, but for the men listening to Manifestly Good, I go, when you look at your journey, it may allow other men to go, whose expectations am I living in accordance with? And how happy and fulfilled am I really? And am I turning up as the best version of myself, not just for me, but for the people I really care about? And
Yep.
and I feel that message so strongly in your journey.
Yep.
And I love you sharing it here today. So.
Yeah, it's been great. Love the studio.
Yeah, thank you. What's next for the mental health pack?
Good question. It's an evolution. It's certainly a one-man band at the moment, but there are things in place to grow the business. I am exploring a partnership model at the moment with someone who is in that psychology space, so that will add a little bit more gravitas to the business, if you like. So that's the expansion is going to be there. A lot more workplace interaction. I think there's still a big need in the workplace to spread the love. And you go into most corporate offices and you've got the first aiders on the wall. Oh, this is the person with first aid, but there's no mental health first aid people there, or mental health practitioners in there, or people that are available to talk. I think we've got the physical component, the physical first aid covered, but not the mental health first aid or the just psychosocial side of things accurately looked after, or adequately looked after, sorry. And that's sort of a little bit of a cause for me at the moment, is to have we got the green piece of paper on the wall to say, hey, you can talk to these people. And some businesses do it well, others don't. You know, even in the men's room, Beyond Blue do this quite well, where they have posters or A4 leaflets on the wall saying, hey, if you need to talk, here it is. And that's a great location for it because you've got nowhere else to look. And I think there needs to be more of that, more visible in the workplace, in the offices and so forth. But also the way that businesses operate with their meetings is such, like some will have safety shares at the start of a meeting, particularly in mining. Maybe there's an opportunity for a mental health share or something like that you may have observed of a friend or something, or even yourself. So I would love to be a lot more involved in the corporate world, in that professional space, to just get that messaging out, and that'll make people a lot more productive and a lot more happier and engaged in their jobs. And
we touched on the suicide stats just before. We know that they're not even scratching the surface.
No, look, we're not. But like I said to you before, if you know, even doing this podcast helps save someone or gets them to help, then job done. Right, so there's a lot to do there. So certainly from the mental health perspective, get more T-shirt sales, I hope. Pack mentality, you talk, I listen. And doing a lot more of that stuff and expanding the business so that we can spread the love as such, which is a very simple message, very basic message, but I think that's what the world needs. So I'm hoping, this time next year we'll be talking to a different founder of the business, and hopefully have joined forces and growing it to really deliver that message. And it's not just my message, it is my message, but it's not going to be delivered by me all the time. I want to be building a pack and getting more people involved in what I do, and potentially bringing on another instructor, which will be great, and just thinking, yep, great, we're going to really ramp this up and try and deliver a really positive, wholesome message to workplaces that people know that they've got someone to talk to. Just providing that outlet for talk, I think, is so important.
It is. You're making the place a better world.
I sure hope so.
So how can people connect and get involved? You mentioned some of the things that the mental health pack got going.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, Facebook and Insta. I'm still learning to get onto that. But website, www.mentalhealthpack.com.au, and that'll take us to the website, and contact information's on there as well. And happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, and if they're having a bad day, shoot me a message. I'm happy to help them where I can. So very excited about what's ahead.
What's the most important message you'd love men who are watching this podcast to leave with?
That there is help available. There is a shitload of opportunity to talk to somebody, be it online or on the phone. There's so much opportunity for help, and they're not alone, and that they matter in this world. You know, several high-profile people have died by suicide thinking that they don't matter in the world, and that's just so wrong. So I want men to know that, yep, you do matter. The world is a better place with you in it, and there's so much opportunity to be able to talk to somebody. Everyone wants to hear their story, so reach out.
every person matters, don't they? When we think of the ripple effect of every human, and you take them out, and it's a community, it's a tribe. It ripples out to the lives of so many people, and I think that's such an important message that you feel like you need to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that old adage of it's not what you say to people, it's how you make them feel, and just the act of calling them, say, mate, I just want to see how you're going. I miss your face, or I miss your voice. I just want to talk to you and see how you are. That can have such a powerful effect on an individual to think, wow, someone does think I matter. And
there's this little, while you're talking about that, I'm building a little list of people I'm calling after this.
Yeah, great. So, excellent.
It's not lost on me.
Job done. Great.
It's been an incredible conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Your journey's one. It's interesting, but I know it'll leave a lot of people who watch this and listen to us think a lot about their own journey and the expectations they hold themselves against. It'll make them think about the people they care about in their lives, and are they checking in with them? What they can do, and if they're struggling, what they need to do to because everyone matters, and I don't want anyone to think that they don't. The work you're doing to support men's mental health is inspiring. Yeah,
I hope so. And I hope it makes a bit of a difference. And certainly from my own learnings of, even simple things like being a little bit more open with my wife as an example, like it's not as hard as what you make it out to be in your own mind. And even opening up to friends is so very important. So, yeah, I'm just so excited to be part of that and hopefully make a difference. And it's the best thing I've ever done. It took me a long time to get there, but getting there is, at least I made it. And not many people can say that. So I'm very, very proud of that.
You should feel very proud. Thank you. Can't wait to see where it goes.
Thank you.
Conversations like this are why I started Manifestly Good, to share stories of people who are redefining what it means to be a good man and living out those values every day. Nick's journey is a testament to questioning the stories we tell ourselves, the power of vulnerability, and the impact we have when we show up for ourselves and each other. If today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to check out Nick's work at Mental Health Pack, whether that's for mental health resources, career support, or simply you like the idea of connecting with a community where you can be real. And if you found this conversation valuable, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, every small action matters when it comes to creating change. I'll see you in the next one.